have so many questions, but we do have a set of questions that the candidates already have been given. And so we'll go through those and we'll see, we've given them each 90 seconds, a minute and a half to answer each question. This is not a pick and choose. You get to find out what each candidate feels about a given question. I will read it for you, and then we will start this session with Jean Marie. We're going to start with property rights. Do you understand Agenda 21, and do you believe it is a real threat to property rights? Just stay in your place, please.
You may stand,
yes.
Thank you. Yes, I have learned more about Agenda 21 in this campaign than I ever thought I would know about an issue. And it's a very important issue. I do believe it's a threat to property rights. And I'd like to tell you what I have noticed or what I have come to understand about this issue in Fairfax County, because I represented Fairfax County, and I've been watching that county become more and more and more Democrat. And you know what they're doing? They're building urban areas, little cities all over the county. And when they do that, it brings in urban dwellers and Democrat voters. And that's why Fairfax County has become so Democrat that it's very difficult for Republicans to win it anymore. So I think that there's a political aspect to this, and it's become a useful tool for Democrats to turn over localities. There are precincts that I represented, there were rock-solid Republican precincts, and they would build a little town center, they call them, with mixed use, retail, commercial, and all those apartments or condos, and within a year or two, it became a very Democrat voting precinct. So I think that there is a political agenda with this as well, and something that we all need to be very cautious about, especially out in the valley, the areas that are a little more rural, about how your localities decide to develop in the future. Because what's happening in Fairfax County and is now kind of encroaching into Loudon and Princeton and beyond could really be the future in these localities as well. So those are kind of my thoughts about how they're utilizing that.
Corey?
Thank you, Susanna.
We'll just go down the line now.
Yeah, sure. HB 1071. This is when the General Assembly forced local governments, including Prince William County and others. At first it was mandatory, and then because a couple of us lobbied the General Assembly, it's now so-called voluntary, but there's still some ways that the General Assembly forcing local governments to develop so-called sustainable developments. You know what this was called in 2007 with the General Assembly, including the Republican members? New urbanism. This came right out of the lefty playbook in 1992 when this was passed by the United Nations and encouraged it to occur all across the world. We need to fight against this. It's real. It's not a big conspiracy theory. It actually does occur. It's not just occurring in local governments, but it's occurring in Virginia as a whole. And there are things that we can do. I'd like to applaud Delegate Lingenfelter for his work to try to defeat a portion of it, but it's a much bigger issue than just farming.
A lot of us didn't exactly know the term Agenda 21, but if you test anything that government is telling you to do against your compass and your belief of what the role of government is, I know for us in Stafford County, we were one of 2 counties that went to the General Assembly to testify against the forced mandate of UDAs. The very first thing that we said to the subcommittee was, don't implement the UDAs. When that didn't seem to be taking hold, we threw whatever kind of mud we could at it, whether it was lowering the threshold. They were even telling us the amount of population that we had to plan for. If you back this up, of when they even came into play, it came in through House Bill 3202. That's where you had the taxing authorities that were going to be implemented, where people who hadn't even been elected to office were going to be raising your taxes. And that's where urban development areas, UDAs, that set the stage for them. So in Stafford County, we were voting on our comp plan that year, which were also required by the General Assembly to have a comp plan in place. That year, we were told they were mandated. The General Assembly mandated them. Then the next year, they spent millions of dollars out of VDOT money having consultants come around to all of the counties to talk to them about how to implement UDAs, and that very same year, they made them optional. Test what you believe the role of government is against each legislation.
In 2013, I think it's time that we finally exorcise the ghost of Kofi Annan, okay? It's time to get rid of something that happened in 1992 from the United Nations. I will fight with all of my heart to make sure that U.S. sovereignty remains supreme. I do believe that, one, Agenda 21, it's real, and it is a real and clear present danger to our property rights, without a doubt. And I have a record of fighting against the United Nations. Just this past fall, I worked with Mike Ferris to help defeat a UN treaty, a blue flag treaty in the United States Senate that would have gutted our parental rights. I was proud to stand by Mike Ferris and work with him to make sure that in the United States our sovereignty reigns supreme. Thank you.
Yes, Agenda 21 is a real threat to property rights. I did not need to know the terminology of property rights to know that all the authorities that these local governments were seeking were wrong. I recall when I first ran for election, my predecessor was a great representative of my community in a corporate sense because he gave them all the authorities they needed. But I decided I was going to represent the people, and I recall when our county manager came to me, because I wasn't voting for any of these things, and I said, you know, my predecessor represented you well corporately, but I'm not, because every time I give you an authority, I deny my citizens' liberty. And whether it's sustainable development, smart growth, all the scenic byway stuff, all these things, the combined the sewer overflows, the runoff, the water runoff, all of these different things, denying you property rights, seeking to take control of everything and denying you liberty.
Well, not only is Agenda 21 a threat to our property rights, it's a threat to our liberty. And the reality is, we don't need a bunch of two-bit thugs and dictators trying to tell Americans how we should live and how we should conduct ourselves. And let's be real with one another. The reason why some here have suggested, well, you know, we weren't that familiar with Agenda 21 is because the Republican Party, for too long, ignored the grassroots who were saying this was a real issue, you need to pay attention to it, and it was kind of dismissed, well, that's some sort of crazy conspiracy theory. You know, we need a new Republican Party that listens to the grassroots and realizes we know what we're talking about.
EW is right. We need leaders who will listen, and that's why I put in the resolution against Agenda 21 in this General Assembly. And I will tell you, I was mocked by the press. I was mocked by the Democrats. And I'm sad to tell you, I was mocked by some Republicans. Let me tell you what, folks. You can mock Scott Lingenfelter all you want to. But when it comes time to lead, I'm going to lead. Now, I'm going to tell you something. This Dick Leak organization that sits behind this Agenda 21, this guy Copeland, who's this radical lefty, who's running that thing and trying to manage your life. Have you ever noticed the government cares more about the fat in your bloodstream than the fat in their government? Huh? And I would tell you, you're exactly right. Let's call U-Haul. Let's back them up to the UN. Let's load them up and send them to Luxembourg, and let's pay for the ship that gets them there.